The storm rolled in as Evelyn Blackthorn crested the hill overlooking Blackthorn Manor. The wind whipped her long black coat around her frame, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and decay. Her emerald eyes, sharp and striking, narrowed as they took in the house that had dominated family lore for centuries. Against the backdrop of thunderclouds, the manor's dark silhouette loomed, its spires clawing at the heavens like skeletal fingers. Evelyn had always been the rebellious one, carving her own path and letting her sharp wit cut through the reserved airs of her family. Yet, despite her defiant nature, she felt an inexplicable pull to this place. The solicitor's letter had informed her that she, of all people, had inherited the forsaken estate of her great-uncle, Lord Alaric Blackthorn. The gate stood rusted and imposing, groaning as she pushed it open, the sound like a mournful cry. The air thickened as she stepped onto the overgrown path leading to the house, the chill of the storm seeping into her bones. Blackthorn Manor seemed alive in its abandonment, a predator waiting in the shadows. At the heavy oak doors, Evelyn paused. Her reflection flickered in the tarnished brass of the knocker, distorted and ghostly. She tightened the belt of her coat, steeling herself as she placed her hand on the door. It yielded with a deep groan, the sound reverberating through the hollow interior. Inside the house was a tomb of dust and shadow. Faint streaks of moonlight streamed through the grime-streaked windows, casting silvery slants on decayed furnishings and cracked floors. Silence engulfed her, oppressive and heavy, broken only by the whisper of her boots on the floorboards. Then the whispers began. At first they were faint, almost imperceptible, but they grew louder as she ventured deeper. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, murmurs that brushed the edges of her consciousness. Evelyn's pulse quickened, the rational part of her mind struggling to dismiss the sounds as the wind or the creak of old wood. But the unease gnawed at her. She ascended the grand staircase, her fingers brushing against the banister. Dust clung to her fingertips and the wood felt cold, almost wet. Portraits lined the walls, their subjects grim and shadowed. Alaric's eyes seemed to follow her, the artist capturing the piercing gaze that had once commanded reverence and fear. It was in the study that she found the journals. The room was chaos frozen in time. Papers and books lay scattered across the floor, as though some violent force had torn through the space. Among the debris, one book stood out, a leather-bound volume that seemed untouched by time. Its intricate gold embossing shimmered faintly in the dim light, drawing her toward it. She picked it up, and the whispers grew louder, insistent. The book was unnervingly cold to the touch, almost alive. As she opened it, her breath hitched. On the first page, written in elegant but sinister script, were the words, "The Grimoire of Eternal Essence." The room's temperature plummeted, and a sudden gust extinguished the faint light, leaving her in darkness. The whispers rose into a cacophony, and she felt a presence. A voice, deep and commanding, called her name. Her heart pounded as she turned, her eyes adjusting to the dim light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. Lord Alaric Blackthorn stood before her, impossibly vivid, his figure radiating a cold, malevolent energy. His lined face, framed by a short, dark beard, was as she remembered from portraits, though his eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity. He observed her with an unsettling smile, his gaze heavy with knowledge she could not fathom. Evelyn froze, every muscle in her body screaming to flee, though her feet refused to obey. The screams began distant at first, but growing louder. Cries of torment and despair filled the air, stretching across what felt like eternity. Evelyn's breath quickened as she tried to comprehend the horror unfolding around her. Lord Alaric appeared again, his expression one of cruel amusement. He told her the house had never been empty, that it was alive with the souls of those who had dared to covet what she now held. Evelyn's mind fractured as the shadows consumed her, pulling her into an endless void. The last thing she saw was Alaric's face, his laughter echoing in her ears like a cruel lullaby. Blackthorn Manor still stands, its windows dark and silent. To this day, whispers linger in its halls, and the portrait of Evelyn Blackthorn now hangs beside her great-uncle's.